Hey everyone, welcome back. Today is not going to be a very interesting video, unfortunately. Today we're just going to finish up all of the kind of final body work. So we're going to get all of the edges sanded nice and smooth, filled in the holes for the fender flares with a body filler. And so I'm going to do a light sanding on those. I think we might actually have to put in a little bit more. So once this is done, I think the next video we can actually start working on the tube work. And I'm going back and forth about just making it up as I go along, or if I want to try and create some sort of render, like a 3D model, just so I have an idea. I'm still tossing that around. But yeah, so this one is just going to be, yeah, just a lot of sanding, unfortunately. I'll try to make it as interesting as I can. So I'm going to be using two things today for the sanding. This is 600 grit sandpaper. So this is kind of the finishing thing, but the bulk of the work will be done with these sanding sticks. So one side's 180, the other side is 220. Obviously you can tell I've been using these a little bit already. These came in a package of like 10 for, I don't know, $7 or so. They were pretty cheap. These are going to be doing the bulk of the work on the seams, just knocking it all back and getting it nice and smooth. And then again, the Duragold stuff is going to be kind of the finishing. I'm also going to use this on the paint as well. So right now, let's start working on these and just get all these joints nice and clean. We're just going to push all this out of the way. I'm not sure which side is the 180 and which side is the 240. This side feels a little bit grittier, so I think this is the 180 and this is the 240. I think that's how it goes. So anyways, that's what we're going to go on. 180, 240. So this is just a couple minutes of work, and you can tell already it's already like such a nice joint. So this definitely doesn't take very long, which is great. It just makes the final product look so much better. So it's absolutely worth doing this. So this bit, so in the corner, it's kind of rounded out a little bit. Well, so the corner is round, but then there's just this like straight edge that I'm trying to get, trying to clean up a little bit. Because all of this is on the inside, I'm not actually that worried. It was mostly just kind of cleaning up all of the little, you know, bits hanging off of it. This edge, because this is going to be out in the open, the tubing is going to kind of follow this. This one I'm just going to sand just flat, and again, just kind of clean it up, get all the little bits hanging off of it. And I think that's pretty much it. Again, of course, other than where the body filler is, I think we're going to do that last. We're going to focus on the main joints. I'm also going to do this side. The hood will eventually meet up with this. I'm still trying to decide how I want to do that. And so kind of where the hood seam is going to be, this is another one. I'm just going to sand it flat, just clean it up, try to make it as even as I can. Yeah, this stage doesn't take very long. A tip, if you're doing sanding and after a little while the sandpaper gets kind of gunked up with all the stuff you're taking off, you can kind of sand it on your pants a little bit. It works really good if you're wearing like denim jeans, and it will help kind of pull all that stuff back out. Eventually, of course, you do need to just throw these away and get a new sanding stick or new sandpaper, because it just kind of wears smooth. I had forgotten that I actually chopped off the rocker panels, at least this one. So I think what I'm going to do, this is kind of a sharp edge here and here. So I think what I'm going to do is just very lightly, as well as on this corner here, just kind of round it over just a little bit. And we're only going to do very, very light pressure, because this is one area where you could absolutely go way too far if you press too hard. So we're just going to kind of take our sanding stick on the 240 side and just kind of at a 45-degree angle to the piece, just very slowly kind of go back and forth, and we're gonna kind of rotate it around just to make sure that's a nice and smooth corner. And we'll do the same on the inside here. Again, kind of just very lightly and very slowly kind of rounding it. I don't know how well you can tell on camera, but it's just to give it a little bit of a round edge, so it's not sharp, it's not going to catch anything. That is one fender done, 3 to go. And I think we're just going to do a time lapse for the rest of this. Again, it's just sanding. It's nothing exciting. This goes pretty quickly. This is pretty soft plastic, so it really doesn't take very much to sand it smooth the way you want it. So on these fenders, I added this bit of tape here. I'm actually going to bob the back a little bit. So this is towards the front of the cab, this is towards the rear gate. And I think I'm going to chop this off. I haven't decided how much yet, so I'm just going to leave that for now. So on these edges, I need to sand this edge. I'm going to leave that one since I might chop it. I need to sand this down, and then like on the front, I'm just going to round these corners over a little bit. Okay, the fenders are all done for now. I think I'm going to do kind of a finishing sand on everything once I'm ready to get these, painted and attached to the chassis. Right now, I'm mostly focused on getting them to a point. They're mostly there. It's just a matter of kind of finishing up. Obviously, I still have to do all of the body filler on these panels, which I'm not looking forward to doing. It's got to get done though. So I think that is the next task. And to do that, I'm going to switch over to the Duragold. If it's just not working at that point, I might switch back to the sanding sticks. I'm a little bit worried that these are going to take off too much material, and they're going to just kind of scratch and mar the plastic. So these are kind of a last resort. One thing you can do if you're sanding something that's flat, you can actually get a piece of glass from like a picture frame or something, or if you can find something a little bit thicker, and then you can kind of tape your sandpaper down to that sheet of glass, and that way you have something that is perfectly flat and even. For this, I'm not going to worry about it. My table here is pretty flat, so I'm just going to use that. I think I will tape down the sandpaper to my cutting mat here, just so I don't have to worry about it sliding around, and it's so frustrating. So yeah, that is the next thing. Let's do it. Let's get it over with. I've got my sheet here. As you can see, it's 600 grit of this Duragold. I'm just going to put it down here, and I'm going to tape down. I don't know how well it's going to stick because this is so dusty. Oh, there's my cat. Curious about what's going on. Oh, she's very interested in this. So the tape is just here just to hold this down to prevent it from sliding around. I think this will work on the back panels here because these are flat. Obviously, because the front panels kind of have this slight bend to them. Trying to sand on a flat surface really isn't going to work that well. So we're just going to do it for these back panels. So that got most of it off. I gotta put a little more pressure down here on these two, but up here, oh, hello. So you can still feel some divots up here. So I think we're just gonna worry about getting most of it off for now, and then worry about the rest later. All right. I think that's a good spot for now. All of the excess is off, just right where the little divots are. So they're mostly filled in, which is nice. So I do have to do the inside of the fenders as well. But for now, I think that's a pretty good stopping point for this fender. So next up is this fender. This one I think had less on it, so it shouldn't take as long, which is nice. So this one will only need just a tiny, tiny amount of filler to get that really seamless look, which will be nice. The other one, I think most of these still need just a little bit more. The bottom two are okay, but these top 5 here, they still feel a little bit rough. But we're done with this sheet, and we are going to move on to the front 2 fenders now. And we're going to do these by hand because there's a bit of a curve to them, but it shouldn't be too hard. You can tell the difference between the corners and where I was sanding. I'm going to pull out a second sheet. I'm checking frequently. I don't obviously want to like really scuff up the plastic or anything like that. I just want to take that excess off. So I'm kind of going slowly and checking as frequently as I can. So, you know, do a few passes, take a quick look, few passes, take a look, that kind of stuff. It's slow going, but again, just playing it safe here. When you're doing it this way, one thing you have to be careful of, because you're only using a small section of the sandpaper to sand one specific area, it gets gunked up really, really fast. And so I've already had to switch over to a new spot just to get this little corner done. When it's taped down, of course, you're using the whole sheet, so you have way more surface area. So that's just something to be aware of as you're sanding, just to constantly move the paper around. One of the nice things about using a really, really fine grit like 600 grit is you don't have to worry about taking off too much material in one pass. So if you were to use a really, really rough grit sandpaper for something like this, it would be very, very easy to start to deform the plastic a little bit. Like you know, if I sand in one spot too much, you know, then there'd be like a little dip there. Another thing I'm being careful of is this edge right here. I want to be careful not to let the edge of the sandpaper go over it, because that's where you start to round over that edge. Again, because I'm using such a fine grit, it's not that big of an issue, but it is something to be careful of. On these tougher spots where the body filler is a little bit thicker than in other areas, like these two are really, really thick, what I'm trying to do is use more pressure, but shorter strokes. So I'm not, instead of doing these wide passes with a lot of pressure, I'm doing very, very short, because I only want that pressure right there. I don't want to be messing up the rest. And by kind of putting the pressure with one finger, I can really feel what's happening under there. And so I can feel if it's starting to feel more smooth, if it still feels like there's a bit of a bump there. Still checking very, very frequently to make sure that I haven't, you know, gone too far or anything. So the front two here, they had a lot of body filler on them. They feel great though now that they're sanded. Like these won't need to be redone. These, however, probably could have done a bit more. So I really struggled to get these sanded down. And I found that if I put the sandpaper actually on the table, then I can really kind of take it and really push down. I can get that pressure. So I think I'm actually going to do the same with this one, because this one's also a mess. And again, be very, very careful. I'm trying to follow the contour of the fender. So what I'm kind of doing is just focusing on one little bit at a time. You know, and you can kind of feel it as you press down, you'll feel the whole thing kind of shift a little bit. And so I'm just trying to push down and make sure it's nice and flat and feel that shift. So I think we're at a good stopping point. Like I said, on some of them, the holes didn't get filled in all the way. So what I think I'll do is I'll go through each fender one by one and kind of make a little note of which ones need a little extra body filler. I'll try to be a little cleaner so that it's a lot easier to clean up. Some of these took some real effort, but again, I don't really know what I'm doing. So we are just gonna figure this out together. But I think going back and filling those in will be done when I get closer to body work. And then as I'm ready to paint and everything, then I want to make sure that they're all like sanded nice and smooth and filled in properly and all that stuff. The grill still needs a lot of effort because we had to hack and put it back together. So it is all glued together, as you can see. There's some big ridges where it was glued back together, and that is going to take some effort to sand down and, you know, fill in and make sure it's nice and smooth and everything. But again, I think I'm more anxious to get started on the tube work, and that's kind of more of a finishing touch. So I think I'll do that last. What I did do, I don't know if I mentioned it very well in the last video, so I just used some CA glue to put the bottom and the top part back in, but because there's not a lot of surface area, I was worried about like taking a hit and it kind of cracks or breaks or something. So what I did is on a spare piece of the body, I chopped off a thin section and I glued it all the way across the top here, and I just drenched it in CA glue. I also have these pieces which I cut off of the body, and these will get glued onto the back as well. And this will provide a ton of surface area for it to glue to. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the day. I hope it wasn't too boring. I tried to throw in a few little fun tips for sanding and stuff just to make it a little bit more interesting. As always, thanks for watching. Subscribe, hit the like button, whatever support you can give, I absolutely appreciate. If you have any comments, write them down below, send me a message, whatever. I'd always appreciate some advice. It has, like I said, it has been a long time since I've been in this hobby, and I've forgotten a lot. But anyways, thanks for watching, and look forward to the next video. Thanks.